Hi, my name is Tanya, and I'm the legal assistant for the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program at the South Texas Civil Rights Project, and this is the DACA intake volunteer training. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are and what DACA is, what the program does, how to screen a person to see if they qualify for the program, and what kind of eligibility requirements DACA has, and the next steps after you screen someone to see if they qualify. So the Texas Civil Rights Project is a nonprofit organization. We work for racial, social, and economic justice, and we work with lower to middle income Texans. This is a few words that you're going to hear throughout the training. So just so that you can become a little more familiar with them and documented, this is a term that we use to describe our applicants if they are indeed undocumented, which means that they are not, do not have a legal status to be in the United States. We also call them dreamers after the DREAM Act that has failed to pass Congress. Removal proceedings is one of the methods in which the United States tries to get people to leave the United States. Voluntary departure is another one of those ways, and this usually means that a person signs a piece of paper that states that they are voluntarily leaving the United States. An I-94 is a little white card that is given to persons with visas, and this card usually has the date that they came in and the date that they left the United States. So what is DACA? DACA is a program that provides an immigration benefit for young people. These people are usually called dreamers, like we discussed earlier. So if a person qualifies for DACA, they get 2 years protection from deportation, they get a valid social security number, and they can get a Texas driver's license. DACA is not a policy, it's a policy decision, it's not a law. So it's a discretionary program, just like we had it from one day to the next that Obama announced it. It could easily, be taken away tomorrow, but we hope that doesn't happen. So these are some of the requirements for DACA. There's several requirements that you will need to go through with an applicant to make sure that they qualify, which is their age, date and age of arrival, continuous residence, if they've lived here for a certain amount of time and they're currently still living here, as well as their educational background, if they have some kind of criminal record, and their physical presence in the United States. Okay, so the minimum age to apply for DACA is 15 years old. The only exception to this is if they are currently in removal proceedings, then they can be under 15. We will be preparing applications for people who are 14 and going to be turning 15 this year, in 2015. So if they turn 15 sometime later this year, we will be able to help them. The maximum age that you can be to apply for DACA is between 32 and 33 years old. It just depends, but a good rule to remember is that their date of birth must have been after June 15, 1981. For a person to qualify for DACA, they must have arrived in the U.S. And started living here before June 15, 2007. And they must have also been 16 when they arrived. They must have been under 16 when they arrived in the United States. So, been here by June 15, 2007, and be under 16 years old when they started living here. If a person is applying for DACA, they must have continuous residence in the United States, which means that when they started living here in 2007 or earlier, they couldn't have left the United States to go live back to Mexico or whatever country they came from. This doesn't mean that a person couldn't have left the United States at all during that time if they came on or before June 15, 2007, and then they left. That is usually fine as long as the absence is brief, casual, and innocent. Brief means that it was an appropriate time for them to fulfill whatever the purpose was for them leaving. So if someone passed away, if they had to have some sort of celebration over there, or went on some sort of small vacation and then came back, that's fine, as long as it wasn't for more than 3 months that they had left. So casual means that they also didn't go live over there. They had to have been still living in the United States, not leave the United States, and then go live wherever they're from. And innocent means that they left the United States, that they didn't leave the United States to go commit some sort of crime, or that it wasn't a result of deportation or voluntary departure. So, for continuous residents, they could not have been deported after June 15, 2007, and they couldn't have signed voluntary departure either. If they have some sort of conflict or some kind of situation where they had contact with immigration authorities, we usually ask them what that entailed, and we usually ask them, did you sign anything? Did you take any pictures? Did they take your fingerprints? If they say yes, but they don't know if that was exactly voluntary departure, that is something that we will need to figure out. But if we do have an applicant, you can call one of the attorneys over or one of us over, and we'll talk to them as well. But it's just something to be aware of. If there's ever any contact with immigration, it is a flag. So also, they can have no absences after August 15, 2012. If they left at any point after August 15, 2012, they do not qualify for DACA. So an applicant must have been undocumented on June 15, 2012. That's when DACA was announced. And they must also be undocumented at the time of at the time that they were applying for DACA. So if they still have a visa that they are allowed to be in the United States, they don't qualify for DACA. Some examples of being undocumented is if they came across the river, if they crossed a desert, if they crossed through some kind of international port with someone else's documents, or they were waved through, and if they came with a visa but they stayed longer than the visa allowed them to, this means that they all have an undocumented status. For their education or military service, to qualify for DACA, they must be currently enrolled in school, or they must have graduated from high school. There's also other ways. If they didn't graduate from high school, if they're not currently in school, they can also apply for a GED program or some other sort of educational program like an ESL program. Different programs qualify if they're in some kind of, for example, some applicants are in cosmetology school, and that just depends. So if they're in any sort of educational program, then we need to include it on the intake. If it's not high school, then we need to ask as many details as we can about this program to see if they qualify or not. And then also, if they ever served in the military, usually we have none of the applicants have ever served in the military, but they also qualify for DACA if they've ever served in the military. So for DACA, they must have a clean criminal record. If they have traffic offenses, these are fine. If they have tickets from school, these are also fine. For DACA, you do not qualify. An applicant does not qualify if they have any felony convictions, and they can't have any more than 2 misdemeanor convictions. So also, as far as misdemeanors, if they have 2 significant misdemeanors such as violence, domestic violence, or drug trafficking or DWI, they do not qualify for DACA. No gang affiliations. We also screen our applicants to see if they're ever a threat to national public safety or anything like that. Basically, we can't have anyone with any kind of terrorist background applying for DACA, or advise them not to apply for DACA. And if they do have some kind of arrest record or some kind of charge, even if it's for school, if it's like a ticket for truancy, if they got in a fight at school, we always ask for them to bring those records to their appointment. If they have some kind of ticket that they haven't paid off, they will need to pay it off and clear it before they apply for DACA, because it will be included in their application. So if they've ever had any kind of contact with the authorities, with law enforcement, we like to get all the details about that. So if they do have some kind of situation, then we need to know when it happened, why it happened, who was involved, and especially if it was cleared, or if they still have some kind of warrant for their arrest, or if they paid it off, if they have some kind of probation officer. All of those things we'll need to know before they apply for DACA. And as part of the intake, we ask if they've ever been arrested, and we also like to ask, along with that, some of them will say no, they've never been arrested, so we sometimes ask, have you ever been in handcuffs? Because a lot of people will tell you that they haven't been arrested, but they've been in handcuffs. So anything that kind of signals to some kind of situation with a criminal record or some kind of anything to do with the authorities, we just make note of that. Physical presence in the U.S., an applicant must have been present on June 15, 2012 when the program was announced, and they must be in the United States at the time that they're applying for DACA. We cannot have a parent come in and try to make an application for someone who is living in Mexico who doesn't live in the United States. So when we screen someone for eligibility for DACA, this isn't a decision of whether they qualify for DACA or they get permission or they get approved for DACA. We're just screening them to see if they qualify to apply for DACA. We don't make the decision of who is approved. That's left to an immigration agent at USCIS. We can see someone to see if they qualify with all of the requirements, and see if they qualify income-wise as well to receive free help from our office. And all of the volunteers are going to be signing a confidentiality agreement, meaning that whatever the volunteer comes across, whatever they discuss with the client, stays completely confidential, and everything on our intake is also completely confidential. A lot of these questions are really sensitive, and some parents don't feel comfortable answering them over the phone, or they don't feel really comfortable discussing these things with a stranger, someone that they just met. So we just like to assure them that everything is completely confidential, and every question that we're asking is part of the official DACA application. So to screen someone for eligibility, it's really simple. We follow the directions on the intake sheet. And some of these, after you take down, the basic information, name, address, date of birth, then we'll start asking questions about when they came into the United States, how they came in, how long they've been living here. After every one of these questions that has a little note that says flag or stop. For example, someone has had some kind of altercation with the law. We circle a flag. If someone didn't come in, if you ask someone if they've been living here since 2007, and they say, no, I haven't, I've been living here, or I moved to the United States in 2008, 2009, and I've been living here since then, that's a stop. So that person doesn't qualify for DACA, so we immediately stop the intake and explain to them why they don't qualify. For, sorry, excuse me. Okay, so if there's a stop sign for someone who isn't currently 14 or 15 years old, but they're in removal proceedings, just ignore it. And also, if someone isn't currently in school, we can still go ahead and do the intake if they're not involved, if they're not in any sort of program. If they still qualify, meet all of the other requirements for DACA, we usually like to advise them if they want to enroll in some type of GED program or other educational program. Then it's up to them, but they would need to do that in order to qualify for DACA. So once the intake is done, you can just call a staff member over to review the intake, to see any flags that you highlighted, if they had any incidents, like I mentioned with the criminal background, or if they left at some point between 2007 and now, then all of those things just need to be as detailed as possible, and we will review the application and see if everything checks out. After we review the application, then we review their intake, then we have to send them an information packet. So the applicants have to go through this information packet. This information packet is really thorough, and it comes with a checklist of all the documents that they're going to need to gather for their application. We usually do an intake and give them about 3 to 4 weeks to gather all of their documents. A lot of these families already have a lot of their documents ready that they've been saving since they've been living here for years and years, and a lot of these families have nothing. So we really have to emphasize to them the importance of the documents that they bring to their appointment or for their application, because if they don't come prepared, then we can't help them, or we're going to keep sending them back until they get all of their documents ready. The main things to explain to them that they're going to need is a passport, and if they don't have a passport, then they're going to need a birth certificate and an ID, a photo ID. And this can be a school ID, even if it's expired. The passport also, it doesn't matter if it's expired. They don't need both. They don't need a passport and a birth certificate and a photo ID. It's either or. If they came in with a visa, and they still have a visa and I-94, they will also need to bring it as part of their documents. Continuous presence. So for this, to prove continuous presence in the United States, they're going to need to gather the documents that they have from at least June 15, 2007 until the present, until the day that you're doing the intake. So they can use any document that has their name on it and a date on it. As in, transcripts work best. We usually ask people to take their school transcripts if they're enrolled in a school, or if they were ever enrolled in a school. The school needs to have their records, and we just advise them to get their school transcripts. If they have any other letter that was sent home, any medical bills, any receipts that they have, anything at all that has the applicant's name and a date on it from at least June 15, 2007 until the current date that they're applying for DACA. And then a really big one is presence on June 15, 2012. Again, when the program was announced, they will need some type of document, some type of proof that they were in the United States on June 15, 2012. And this is the hardest document for people to find, the hardest piece of evidence, because it's really difficult to find a document from June 15, 2012 with that exact date. So if they don't have something, for example, if they weren't in summer school, then it's going to be really difficult to find something for the summer, because kids usually aren't doing much in summer if they're not in school. So if they weren't in school and the transcript doesn't have a date for June 2012 on it, even if it's not June 15th, any date around a few days before, a few days after June 15th if they don't have anything at all with June 2012 on it, then they really, really have to look. We just kind of like to pick their brains about what they were doing that summer, if maybe they were involved in some kind of sport, if they were involved in some kind of school band, or if they were volunteering somewhere where they had a sign-in sheet and they had to check in, and that sign-in sheet has the dates from when they checked in, if they went to the doctor that summer, if they were sick, anything like that that they might try, that might like spark their memory and see what they were doing June 2012, because it is really, really important, even if it is really difficult to find a document from this time period. A lot of applicants will want to use affidavits, which is just a letter from someone that they know stating that the applicant was here on June 15, 2012, and the letter can be notarized. And so they'll just say, well, I have a letter, does the letter work? And no. They can use a letter as a very, very, very last resort, but we like to encourage them to do their homework and to find some type of document that has the date of June 2012. And the reason that we use them as a last resort is because they don't really have any effect on their application. It's the immigration agent would much rather see an actual proof that they were here, some kind of document stating that they were here, as opposed to a letter from someone that they know saying that they were here. Like I mentioned, people who are still in school and qualify for DACA, they need to gather their school documents from at least June 15, 2007 if they've been living here since 2000 and the school transcript includes the dates from the moment that they started kindergarten until now. That's great, that's perfect. There's also a lot of families who might have jumped around from school to school and withdrawn and enrolled. They're going to need to get the documents from every school if one school doesn't have it. They can also get it from the school district, and also a lot of times the student can just go and ask for it themselves. They will also need to show that they are currently still enrolled in school, or that they graduated high school, or that they're currently enrolled in some kind of educational program. And then aside from school records, they can also use any bank statements, medical records, vaccine records if they got those vaccines in the United States, because some people have vaccine records from Mexico and can't use those. Any certificates that they got, any sort of anything. If they have a library card with a date on it, any document, an ATM receipt that they have with a date on it, they can use this. And like I mentioned, letters are a last resort. They need to do their homework and find as many documents as they can with as many dates as possible. They will also be needing, aside from all of their documents, they will be needing to have a $465 money order, and this is the fee for their application. They don't need to have that money when they come to get an appointment with us. We can still see them, we can still give them an appointment. But if they do have the money, then they need to bring it in the form of money order, and we can help them fill out the information on the money order for it to be sent to the Department of Homeland Security. We don't charge for any of our services. Our services are completely free to the applicants, but we can't cover that fee. That fee is the only fee that they will need to pay. They will also need 2 passport-sized photos, and again, usually they don't need to have it at the time. It's not absolutely vital, but it is strongly recommended that they have those photos by the time they have their appointment. A really important one for their application is that in the list of the information packet that was sent, we also send them a list of a list that they need to fill out with all of the addresses that they've ever lived at since they lived in the United States. So if an applicant lived in the United States and they moved twice, then they need to include those 2 addresses and approximately the day, month, and year that they moved in and out. of those addresses, and if an applicant moved 15 times, they're going to need to remember those 15 addresses in approximately the day, the month, and the year that they moved in and out of each home. They don't need proof of every single address that they ever lived at. They don't need a document for each address, but they will need to remember exactly where they lived and how long they lived there. And a lot of applicants, think that they can fill this list out here once they're at the appointment, but they can't. We need to emphasize that they need to do this list before they come to the appointment and be ready to go, because if they show up to their appointment and or to the clinic and they don't have the list of addresses, then we waste a lot of time with them trying to remember, like, well, at this time I was living here and then I moved here and I can't remember the number and I need to call someone who can remember. So no, that's a lot of time wasted, and that's something that we can't help them with. That's something that they can take care of on their own and that they need to take care of. So the address list is a big one. So like I mentioned, in the information packet, there's a checklist with all of these documents, all of these things that they need to bring, their IDs, their transcripts, documents, address list, proof that they were here before they were 16, proof that they were here on June 15. There's a checklist. They need to come to the appointment with all of these boxes checked. If they have everything, they should have everything, and if they're missing something, or if we think that they can't do something, then we talk to them about it once they get to the appointment, but it must be as complete as possible. One more thing also about the list of documents. Like I had mentioned earlier, if they had any kind of criminal record or any criminal charge where they still qualify for DACA, they also need to bring those documents. And in the information packet, there's information about the courthouses, depending on the county that they live in, where they can go and ask for these documents to make sure that the case was cleared and everything, the matter was taken care of. So once you send the applicant or give the applicant the information packet and explain thoroughly what they need to do, what they need to gather, then they need to start sorting through their documents. They need to go home. We give them about 3 to 4 weeks before we give them an appointment and get everything in order for their application. And then at the application clinic, they come with all of their documents, with the checklist, with the address list, passport photos, money order if they have it, and they sit down with one of the attorneys or the volunteers and do their application while someone sorts through their documents. So if you have any questions about the DACA intake training, then you can email Angela or call us here at STCRP. Thank you.